I bought my first home in 2009, 2010, and I only put 3.5 down, which at that time was $12,000. And that seemed like a lot for me, and it was a lot for me. I was young, but just with that, I was able to buy a home.
Dalia Rhule, a realtor who has a passion for what she does, tells us how much her mother inspired and influenced her career path.
Maybe that's who I am because my mom was very generous, and she was acts of service was what she did for other people. And I feel that that's how I am for others. I really work hard for them to help them achieve their goals. I know there's other realtors that just try to take the people that have the highest down payment and they could just make cash. But that's not what gives me joy. What gives me joy is to get the results for anyone that really wants a home.
So how did she find joy while leading a fulfilling profession? Let's find out with Dalia on today's Impactful Latinos.
Hi, Jackie. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So let me start by going into your story, your personal story, because you did not start as a realtor, right?
No.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit more about your background, growing up, being a Latina, and how you ended up being in real estate?
Sure. Okay. So I grew up in Los Angeles, and my parents were immigrants from Mexico, and what I learned from them, I wasn't going to school in South Central, and at that time they had a Spanish program. So Spanish is my native language, so I went to Spanish school, and then we went to live in Tijuana. So when I went to school in Tijuana, I didn't have to learn English, and my math got really good. And when I came back, I was going into 5th grade, I think, and then I started 6th grade in Sherman Oaks. I would take school over there, and I was just thrown into English. And it was so hard for me to learn English, and I had such a hard time. But I really found refuge in math. Every time I did my math homework, it was fast, it was fun. I understood that. And I always just gravitated towards the math and sciences, and I was in high school, same thing. I had such a hard time with English, but math just came naturally to me. So I said, I want to choose something that is going to be easy for me and I would enjoy, and that's why I chose engineering. And in particular, I chose aerospace because I thought it would be more cutting edge and it would be all about innovation, and I wanted to be in that. So I became an engineer, and I started working at Boeing in 2007, and I was in and out of Boeing a few times, and I worked at a lot of other companies. I worked on missiles, I worked on satellites, yeah. And it was really fun, and I came back to Boeing in 2017, and I started working on their commercial satellites, commercial airplanes.
Commercial airplanes? Oh,
Yes.
very good. So you were working with missiles.
Yes.
Okay, very good. But what was interesting to me is how you found math and science better than learning how to speak, right? English, or learning just because you say your English and your Spanish was a little bit of a trouble,
Yeah.
right? Okay. And you had a story about a teacher when you were trying to become going to your field as an engineer. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes. So when I when I was in high school, my teacher was like, "I just don't know how you're gonna do in this world with your language, and your English is not very good." And I said, "I don't know either, but I'm gonna be an engineer. So I'll be okay. I only have to take one English class." So that worked out, and I did that for 15 years.
So tell me a little bit more when you were growing up and you were in the United States and you went to Mexico, and how that impacted you. Can you tell me a little bit more of how it impacted you, of your career choice, and how it made you who you are?
When I went to school in Mexico, I always been a foodie. I'm sure you could tell. And I love food. And I didn't know my times tables when it was recess time, and I got quizzed. And my teacher's like, "Well, you're just not going to get recess because you don't know your times tables." And I was looking at my teacher like, "What?" And I was like, wow, they take their homework very seriously here. So ever since then, I always did all my homework. I was always on time with everything. It made me really diligent with my studies. I feel like I always had the inclination, but just the rigor of the education. When I came back, I was just doing a lot better than the whole class when it came to mathematics and science, and just accountability for myself. And if you didn't do your homework in Mexico, the teacher would tell you to reprimand your classmate if they didn't do your homework. So that was just a big shock to me. So we just had a whole social thing about being accountable and really doing good in our studies. So I really enjoyed that. And when I came back to the States, I just realized that for me, it was just easier to do math and science, and I should stick to something that comes with my abilities. I've always liked poems and reading stories, but when it came to my writing and speaking, it was always been a challenge.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So then what happened when you were in Boeing? How did that, because you were doing okay, right? You were doing great in that field, but what changed? What happened?
Okay, so my mom got sick and she got gastric cancer. It was, when we found out, it was already very advanced, and that's how gastric cancer is. It's like a silent killer. That's what I call it. And at that point, it was like my whole world just changed, and I wanted to focus more on my family. I always had this idea in my head that I wanted to be like this powerful person that was managing all these projects, and I wanted to focus on my career, and that was my aspiration. And when my mom got sick, it was really a shocker for me, and I started to feel, what was all this worth in the end, you know? And I focused on her as much as I could. Unfortunately, she did pass away in
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, thank you, Jackie. Yeah, it was really hard, and I realized that I'm also gonna die too, and I want to be like my mom and leave a legacy of positive things. And that's when I decided I have to do something else. I can't continue with this engineering career. I want to do something to help people, and I got my license, but I kept working as an engineer, as part-time as a realtor. And when COVID hit, that's, I think, when it just really like hit me even more, that I was like, I can't continue with this. And at the time, Boeing had it was called the voluntary layoff, where you could lay yourself off, because I was on the commercial programs, and they gave you money to exit the company. So I took that, and I started working full time as a realtor, and that's been so rewarding. But like I told you, when my mom got sick, that really took a whole turn for my life. And the whole time she was sick, I was trying so hard to maintain my career, juggle my child, my marriage, and help my mom as much as I could with her health, what she was struggling with, and at the same time try to cherish the last few days that she had. And I didn't want to accept that she was going to pass away, even though the doctors told me. And you know, she passed away, and it was heartbreaking. There's nothing that can prepare you for that. And I was so sad. Later on, I received a review. So my mom died in November. I received my review in December, and I got a negative, like a below average ranking. And I had never in my life gotten like below average anything, you know, except in English class. Okay. So when that happened, I just cried so hard, Jackie. I can't tell you the heartbreak I felt, that I missed that time with my mom to try to juggle these other things. And in the end, it didn't even matter. They didn't even appreciate it, you know? So that's when everything just kind of hit a low point, and I started examining my life and say, let me do something where I could help others, and at least I could have that reward for myself, that I know that I helped someone.
Yeah, that I cannot imagine.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. What kind of inspiration did you took from your mom?
My mom was a very strong person. She had a really strong faith, and she always taught me to try my best and to just have faith. And I always do that for every one of my clients. I do above and beyond for each and every one of them. And a lot of people tell me, you work so hard, you're doing way more than you need to. But at the end of the day, I feel like I do the work and God is the one that moves it for people and makes things happen. I've been able to help people that were dealing with lots of child support issues and they never thought they could buy a home, and I helped them, you know, and they're just so happy. And they're like, you know, no other realtor called me back. Once I told them my situation, they never called me back. Or people that have things going on with their immigration status that didn't think they could buy a home, and I was able to help them, you know. So maybe that's who I am, because my mom was very generous, and she was acts of service was what she did for other people. And I feel that that's how I am for others. I really work hard for them to help them achieve their goals. I know there's other realtors that just try to take the people that have the highest credit scores, the most down payment, and they could just make cash. But that's not what gives me joy. What gives me joy is to get the results for anyone that really wants a home.
And I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you, Jackie.
Regarding real estate, though, why real estate? Is there a personal reason for that?
Yes, I did want to share that as my parents came to the United States, something that I really love about this country is that here you have access to financing to get your own home. It's really no obstacle except yourself to save up your money and work your credit. My parents did that. Since I was a kid, they purchased properties, fixed them up, rented them, and then sold them. And they did that several times, and I saw them do that. And my dad was also a business owner, and I saw that at the end of the day, I tried to do several businesses, but at the end of the day, real estate has a really lasting and profound effect on families and the wealth that it can provide, not only for yourself and your life, but for your coming generations. And you could see that in people who have that first home and how they're able to help their family. You know, sometimes people could use their home to pull out cash in an emergency. People could use that to fund college for kids or leave that for passive income for later for other family members. So I think real estate just hit me as one of those things that it's a lasting thing and it will help people and it'll be something that's profound and lasting. So that's why I chose real estate.
Why do you have this strong force of trying to help people, especially the Latino community, right? But why? Where does it come from?
I think it comes from two things. One, from seeing my family, how they came here from nothing and they achieved so much, and how they helped me go to receive that great education. And another thing is the opportunity that we have here is that, you know, I was looking on the United States ranks as number 13th in the world for property rights. So compared to Venezuela, they're like the last on the list. So if you go to Venezuela and you buy property, it's highly likely that it will be taken from you and expropriated for the government to do whatever. But yeah, so, you know, when you come here and buy your own home, you get to live in it and do that. And I just think that if I could help people get started, this is something that'll help them for their whole life. And sometimes people don't think they can do it. You know, I bought my first house when I was 23 and I didn't think I could buy it, but I did it. And then once I did it, I'm like, wow, it had now I have another house, you know. And once I realized how big of an impact it's had in my life, I want to help other people to have that in their life.
What are some of the common questions of that people ask when they're trying to buy a home?
Some of the common questions people ask is, how do I buy a house? They don't know what are the requirements to buy a home. So I could tell you quickly, an overview is that you need to have at least 2 years of a stable income to show that you've had at least the same position and some steady income. You want to have good credit, and the better your credit is, the less amount you have to put down as a down payment. So FHA is a great program that allows people that are buying their first home buy a home with only 3.5%. And that makes a big difference because it makes it more accessible to people. And that's actually the program that most Hispanics are using to purchase a home. Most Hispanics use that program and only put down the 3.5% to purchase a home. And then apart from that, you want to have that 3.5 and you want to have your money in the bank, not underneath your couch or in your treasure at home, but you actually want to put it in the bank.
For how long?
At least you want to put it in there for 60 days. Once you show two bill statements that you've had the cash, you're good to go.
So what is kind of the history with the Latinos regarding ownership here in the United States?
That's a great question, Jackie. We're doing great. So in the last 20 years, Latinos have increased home ownership. We were at 40% about in 2009, and in 2020, we 50% of Hispanics in the United States own a home.
That's a high percentage.
Yes, and it's going to be better. So even in the next 20 years, it's expected that 70% of the growth in the home buying market is going to come from Latinos.
Why is that?
That is because the median age of the Hispanic community is at 29.8 years. So we're in our prime to buy a home. So most of the people in the Hispanic community right now, they're between the ages of 25 to 44, which is when most people want to buy that first home. So that's why we have, a lot of us buying home, despite COVID, despite all these other obstacles that have come, rising home prices. Hispanics seem to outnumber all the other groups in purchasing homes.
So Dalia, what's the current market trend right now?
So, it's really, really interesting. When COVID hit, everyone thought that home prices were just going to plummet and it was going to be similar to what happened in 2008, 2009. And actually the opposite started happening. So everyone started to notice their living space. People wanted to move from apartments to homes, from condos to bigger homes, or some people wanted to downsize. So all this caused people to really focus on buying a home. At the same time, the Fed has really reduced the interest rates, which made money readily available, and that really caused people to go out and get a home. And this spring, it was crazy. Some houses were going $150K over asking price. Each home was receiving about 60 offers. It was a very competitive seller's market. It was a seller's market, and everyone wanted a home. What we see now at this moment is that, yes, the homes prices have increased a lot from this point last year. It was 20% the prices have increased. Now the interest rates are starting to come up, and what's going on with inflation. So that's having people to kind of be a little bit more reserved, and there are less people coming to the table to buy a home. So now when I look at homes in LA, every home's receiving about 15 to 20 offers, depending on the market, because every market's different, but it's still competitive. So the home prices are still expected to go up, but not at 20% from last year. So it's expected to go up 5%. So prices are going to continue to rise, but not as much as it did in the past. And we are seeing that.
Okay, so we're not, because a lot of people may have thought during COVID that it was gonna crash like it did a decade ago. That's not gonna happen.
Yeah, especially in California, there's a big shortage of homes. So what we're seeing is that the housing prices should maintain according with everything, because we just need homes for people, period.
What is the current trend that might be affecting the future homeowners or current homeowners?
Something that I've been thinking about, like as I talk to you, property rights is something that's really protected in this country. We don't really regulate that as far as the market. The market's really dictated by the supply and demand that comes. What we had is, because the prices have come up, a lot of private investors are starting to speculate on how they could come, pull their money together, buy a bunch of homes in specific neighborhoods, acquire them, and then put the house back for rent, because that increases their margins, right, to hold. So These are called private equity firms. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen with all these private equity homes absorbing all these homes. We don't see the supply of homes going up, and how is this going to play out in the market? At this point, there isn't really any regulation for this. We also see companies like Opendoor who claim to buy the house and then fix it and put it back on the market. And I don't know how much of that actually happens, but Opendoor has acquired many homes. Zillow just came out and said last week they're not purchasing any more homes. So it's going to be interesting because all of these things are things that are really going to impact, and a lot of politics are going to go into this. And I think the grand ideas at the end of the day, Opendoor, Zillow want to make it easy for the consumer to just hand over the keys and get their money. But selling a home, there's so much liability involved. It's a very personal choice. And it also impacts those property rights. So this is something that we're grappling with, and I would love to come on your show and talk about that next time.
That sounds great. Is there a common complaints regarding that?
Yeah, so I was reading reviews online, and you could all just go check them out. They seem to put on their website, Opendoor says that they will only charge a 5% transaction fee. And a traditional real estate usually charges it about the same, 5.5. But I see a lot of the negative reviews come from people that say that they receive the money, the fees, but then the home is inspected and they take out a lot of money for the repairs for the condition of the home. Now, like I told you, right now there's a lot more buyers than sellers. So if you're selling a house in this market, it'll be sold in the weekend and your buyers will take it as is. They don't care. So I feel that if people are using those services, they're leaving a lot of money on their table. And you know, when you buy a home and sell your home, it's the biggest asset in your life. So personally, I think you would be better off talking to a realtor, of course. But you could check out reviews online and hear it from people, and they'll share that with you.
Great. That's good to know.
Yeah.
So is there a reason why someone a homeowner would want to sell to Opendoor or Zillow, or they think it's a better choice? I mean, how are they marketing it?
I think they think that it's going to be easy. So they market like you come, you work with us, and in 14 days you could potentially get all your money for your home, which in some cases you can. But there are already people that do that. Investors do buy homes and give it all the cash to you right away in 14 to 15 days. But I think the marketing is that it's going to be easy and it's going to work out for you better.
I want to take it a little bit back because I had a question for how having that 3.5% and how the government actually helps out. Can you give an example?
Yeah, so I'll just use myself as an example. I bought my first home in 2010. I bought my first home and I only put 3.5 down, which at that time was $12,000. And that seemed like a lot for me, and it was a lot for me. I was young. But just with that, I was able to buy a home. Now, if I had to come in with 20% of that purchase price, I would have to have come in with at least, I want to say $50K for the price of the home that I had. So I would have never been able to do that because I was on my own, you know. So that really makes it accessible to people.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming in today, Dalia. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.